Ciao and welcome back to the
iMovie Podcast,
in which every week we
go through the top 250 films on Letterboxds.
Exactly. And this week we are going to number 146 because it's out of order, which is Joel and Ethan Coen's No Country for Old Men. Came out in 2007, 4.3 rated. It was your first time seeing the film?
Yes, and the second time watching a Coen film, which also is quite relevant.
Which the first time was...
the Brother...
Brother, Where Art Thou? Which we only watched like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually.
So I'm not a Coen expert at all.
Not yet. But there's a few. I don't know if there's any others on the top 250.
I don't think
but I've seen also
because also the Big Lebowski is not there. Big Lebowski. And but I'd say that maybe that's also the purpose of this not necessarily podcast, but yeah, in a way, because we decided to do this podcast because we wanted to go through the whole
completion, like a completionist approach.
Yeah.
Even though we'd both already seen a lot of the films on the list.
Yes, but it's
yes,
really not
it is good.
And you've watched many more than I have.
It wasn't.
Yeah, you have like 20
more, maybe.
No, you have maybe like 10% more than I have watched now.
So, No Country for Old Men, which came out in 2007, it won the Best Picture Oscar. You've probably heard of it. If you haven't, you will now.
Yeah.
We'll quickly go through the plot and then we'll play a clip and then we will give our initial impressions and our thoughts on the film.
Wait, just a thing that it came out in 2007, but after 3 years from the previous movie of the...
Which is the Lady Killers, the remake of the original Lady Killers.
Which we watched.
Yes, the original, not the remake.
Yeah, exactly. I liked a lot
it's a great film. The original is classic.
The original, yes. And the remake, to be honest, on Letterboxds, it's not very high rated. It's like 2.8.
But I heard it wasn't. I mean, I don't know. I heard it's not among the best films, but maybe I don't want to just base my opinions on what other people say. I want to also see it for myself. And I've enjoyed most of the Coen films I've seen. Well, as I said, go through the plot quickly in case you haven't seen it, or without spoilers, of course. No Country for Old Men tells the story of 3 characters, or 3 main characters at least, who are Anton Chigurh, played by Javier Bardem, Llewelyn Moss, played by Josh Brolin, and Sheriff Tom Bell, played by Tommy Lee Jones. The film's kickstarted by Josh Brolin's character finding a briefcase containing, I think it's $2 million, but in any case it's a large amount of money in cash, and he knows that this money has belonged to a kind of drug-running cartel, but he wants to keep it because it's a life-changing amount of money, and so he goes on the run while also trying to protect his girlfriend, Carla Jean, played by Kelly MacDonald, and he's pursued by Javier Bardem's character, who's kind of a bounty hunter assassin, and in the meantime, the sheriff, played by Tommy Lee Jones, is kind of trying to solve the case and understand where the money's gone and understand what's happening to Josh Brolin's character, and even trying to protect him. And so it's kind of it's a thriller really, but it's also a chase film because these characters are like crossing paths constantly and on the run from each other. And yeah, I guess it's a neo-western then. It's a western with modern, very 21st century filmmaking aesthetics.
Also, it's set somehow in the 20th century, so it's set in the 80s. So
we'll play a clip and then we'll continue.
What business is it of yours? Where I'm from? Friendo?
I didn't mean nothing by it.
Didn't mean nothing.
Just passing the time. If you don't want to accept that, I don't know what else I can do for you. Will there be something else?
I don't know. Will there?
So,
see, I just wanted to add that also the character played by Josh Brolin is also chased by, I guess, the cartel. In general.
Yes.
Which is quite relevant too.
He's kind of constantly on the run. And it's, I think it's quite a typical, in some sense, although thematically it's different, it's typical of the Coens because firstly it's set in the south of the United States, as are each of their films that I've seen, and there's always an emphasis on specifically Southern culture, and it's not, rather than being broad American culture. I mean, like for example, also Brother Where Art Thou, especially The Big Lebowski, um, and Fargo, is that they're all very specific to the area that they're from, and try and go in depth to the mood of that area. And for example, in No Country for Old Men, one thing that's really you really feel is both the nature and the culture of South Texas, or is it West Texas, where they... But it also must be South, because they're literally on the border to Mexico at some point. Where the film takes place, and it's quite a desolate, even like taking apart the dark themes of the film, it's quite a desolate and lonely place.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get lost in there, and that's part, I think, of the creepy atmosphere, or eerie atmosphere, which is very palpable, we could say. So yeah, that's certainly... As also because we have the DVD and we watched it on the DVD, and that there are also some features, of course. In one of these, they were saying, the Coen brothers were saying that one of the main character is the territory. Yeah, it's so relevant. It's also so relevant to define and describe the characters and where they come from and what's their tradition and values. On this type of stuff, which is quite important, I think.
I do.
And one thing that we didn't mention, but it's very important also, is that it's based on a book. And for the first time, apparently one of the first times, the Coens remained quite faithful to the book. They removed some dialogue, but I haven't read it, and not even you, I guess.
No, I haven't read any books by Cormac McCarthy. It's one of the big holes in my literary culture, I guess.
Yeah, also for me. But in any case, it seems to represent... I mean, it seems that the themes and the setting, the atmosphere is well transposed. Again, with some less dialogues, because I guess it's they would be redundant in scene if you have the visual.
It's actually quite an interesting film to pin down, because I think it can definitely be introduced as a thriller, and it does. I mean, some scenes are extremely tense, and many moments of the film extremely tense, but it also has quite a lot. It's not constructed like a thriller that's like, if you think of the classic espionage film or the classic chase thriller, even going back to Hitchcock's Psycho, or all the films that like make up, the thriller genre. It actually has quite a lot of slower conversational scenes, especially involving Tommy Lee Jones's character, that almost slow the film down a bit and make it a more pensive and meditative film than it would otherwise have been, if that makes sense. I don't know if you agree. Because, for example, I think the pinnacle of the film's thrillingness is actually the middle, not the end. What type of thriller does that?
No, that's... Yeah, definitely.
It's strange. That's true.
Yes, the middle / middle end, I'd say so. Yeah, but it's true.
I mean, the very end isn't the most...
Yeah, but also... No, not at all. And also the way it gets solved is
almost anticlimactic.
It's extremely... It's somehow dissatisfying. In fact, I think a big part of the audience had this feeling. To be honest... I didn't even realize that the apex arrived in the moment that it arrived. But he had to tell me.
Again, I think it's...
Did you notice it? I was like, no one.
I think it's part of the film's charm. And it's maybe part of the message also, I think, because it's...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's telling you that's not what we wanted to tell you. That's not the whole point. The whole point is another, and it's keep going on somehow. Mm-hmm. And so please focus on the other stuff. Which is actually a very stylistic, intriguing way to convey the message.
There's a lot of very cool touches from the way in which the film looks, which is really beautiful. There's some shots that are just fantastic, and I'm thinking, for example, of the scene where Josh Brolin goes back at night to try and burn the remains of when he, at the very beginning of the film, like in the first 10 minutes, he finds the money and then he goes back there in the night and suddenly he sees like another car lit up by the moonlight at the top of the hill.
See.
It's really, I think that scene is so great. It's like almost something out of like a children's book, but also extremely creepy and intense because it's lit up, it's kind of counterlit by the moon, if I remember correctly.
It could be.
But it's extremely, also because you understand that he's in big trouble now because they know he's there. They found his car.
But the fact is, because what came to my mind too was another scene set in the night, because they have, I think, a good way to portray dark settings, even when I am thinking about when he's in the motel, Josh Brolin, and he's in the hotel and he's preparing his rifle. That then we learned also from the features that there is also a very care for details, even like in which exact weapons are chosen, because that the same care has been used in the novel, so in the book. So yeah, and so he's preparing his also, in fact, he's physically preparing his weapon, which is interesting because also again it brings us back to being a person of the territory who knows how some things are done. I wouldn't even know how to even think about how to build together a weapon of that type, or in general, to be honest. I can draw it, but very as a child. And in that scene, you see like the outside, through the window, you see the dark outside and the setting outside with the warm light inside together. So let's say with this, in a certain way, even cozy and potentially romantic atmosphere, contrasted, of course, by the tension of that scene that is very, very...
Yeah.
It makes you stay on your toes a lot.
Well, in general, I think there's a few extremely tense scenes and moments, especially around the character of Javier Bardem, who is extremely menacing, but in quite an unusual way, because he doesn't seem to almost belong to the world of the rest of the characters in the film. He's an outsider who arrives and
Decides.
Yes, I mean, he always seems to be in control, and yet, for example, that first scene where he goes to the gas station and talks to the owners, it's extremely tense. I think it's really brilliantly made.
It's true. Fun fact, Clem told me, okay, pay attention here.
That's true.
It's true. I was writing like some notes for this scene before, and he was like, no, take care. It's super well built because, of course, you're tense, because it's not even like that he says, okay, you're going to die or you're not going to die.
No, but you understand.
He lets, yes, but not only, but it's not the decision of a person, it's the decision of a Coen, which of course is then the person who decides to follow the Coen. But in any case, it's I'm giving you, potential victim, the power to decide over your life. That's one of the cruelest things on earth, and it works so much to create the tension and the fear and the thrill.
But also the other actor, I think, is very good.
Yeah.
The one of the gas station owner. And there's a number of scenes, I think. Also the scene with Woody Harrelson, where Woody Harrelson, who plays another bounty hunter, he's
Carson Well,
a small but important role, meets Javier Bardem at some point, is also very good.
It's true.
It's another very tense,
yeah,
soft-spoken scene, but again, very effective. And even in that scene, just the physical acting and the mannerisms, you can feel how deeply uncomfortable the character of Woody Harrelson is, even without the dialogue, because he tries to put on a brave face and he tries different things to bribe him or to convince him to let him go, but you also see the desperation and realization that he can't do anything to escape.
You're a crazy man.
Without the words, which is also very well
It's
done.
true.
I could just go home.
You could.
Make it worth your while. Take you to an ATM. There's 14 grand in it. And everybody just walks away.
An ATM.
I know, with a Satchel is.
Yeah, because one other element of this film that I appreciated a lot, and more, the more I'm thinking about it, is it's very full of silences. You don't need, you convey messages and I don't know, scenes in general without having to explain them, without dialogue. Even the music is not very much there, and that's another element that I think it's very much working, because also again it matches the setting. I mean, Texas, the desert, it's silent. It is silent, and that silence can be the creepiest thing.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because I think there's no music in the scenes I just mentioned. Either of those scenes, I'm pretty sure.
I don't know, but you will know because we played the. Some scenes.
I'll try and we'll confirm it, but I don't think there is. I don't remember it at least.
It's possible.
And they still are extremely uncomfortable. I think Javier Bardem's performance has a lot to do with it, because it's such a strange performance, because it's not the. I think it's not the typical villain performance, because in some moments he's almost quite jovial, which makes it scarier, because he's almost psychopathic. He doesn't understand.
That's true.
For example, when he flips a coin and the guy guesses it right, he's almost quite happy for the guy. You know, he's genuinely happy to say well done, which I love. It's so strange that he suddenly becomes kind of friendly and just walks out of there.
Mm-mm.
It's an unusual choice on their behalf, but it somehow adds to the strangeness of the character.
Yes, and again also plays more or stronger with the idea of it's not me deciding for you. Mm-hmm. I'm not a bad person for itself. It's just that I have to do what I have to do. That's what I'm leading to.
Yeah.
Which leads also to the theories of Javier Bardem not being a real human. We read also an interesting review that then I think Clem will
integrate
make up here and integrate. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, it talks about Javier Bardem's character.
Yes, and of course the review on Letterboxds, because what are we if not Letterboxd addicted? And it's true. No, that's very interesting, because also it's quite of. I mean, Javier Bardem is quite of a machine in a certain way, or a very non-human person. And according to this review, he's becoming more human when, at the end, he makes some decisions without necessarily the coin. And so that's so interesting, because I think it can go philosophically to different places, and it can be analyzed on different layers, even if you think about it, the story is very simple and quite linear. But then, of course, as usual, you have to discover more.
Yeah, that's true. And I think there's a few interesting touches. For example, the scene where Tommy Lee Jones goes to the motel room, and you have a shot of Javier Bardem like behind the wall, like preparing for someone to enter, and then Tommy Lee Jones goes in and there's no one there. So you're not really sure, like, either it's one of those shots that makes you think two people are in the same place but they're actually in completely different places, which is your first instinct, like, actually he's not in the same hotel room. Or, in a weird way, it's like those two characters can't meet somehow, or they exist in different. It's like it's not time for them to meet, therefore they can't, which would match the theory of Javier Bardem being somehow an incarnation of death, or it wasn't his time to die for Tommy Lee Jones, and therefore he can't meet Javier Bardem at that point. So it's a strange scene.
It's so true. It's so interesting. In fact, that's another big topic, because Javier Bardem is chasing and never meets, and at some point where. When Woody Harrelson finds out that Josh Brolin, sorry, I'm using the name of the actors because the name of the characters for me very hard to pronounce. When he finds out that Josh Brolin saw Javier Bardem, he's like, how you didn't die? How is it possible? So I also guess that in the moment that he faced Javier Bardem himself, I mean. Woody, he probably knew that his fate would have been to die.
He's a very good actor for Woody Harrelson, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And it seems cute, to be honest.
We have to give credit also to Kelly MacDonald, who, as they were saying in the special feature, is actually Scottish, and
you can really hear it.
Is playing someone from Texas who's got a strong Texan accent, and she's very good. And also her scene, which we don't want to spoil, but her scene, her big scene, let's say, with Javier Bardem is also, she's extremely good in that scene. And
I agree.
has an important and powerful role in the film, I think.
Yeah, because also I think her character, to be honest, is relevant, but it's again one of those female characters that serve just to the develop of the main of your main, yeah, let's say at least the male related to them. But she is managing to be at the same time the young innocent West Texas girl, one that in any case, it may be also because she's Texan and everything, she is aware of certain things within her naivety, and but yeah, she has some structure. She knows she's not stupid because she knows exactly what her husband is or partner is doing. She knows how things work, and yet she tries her own way to solve some things, and she has a lot of dignity.
Well, it's interesting because
throughout the film,
you also see that her husband is also very naive in some ways. Like, you see that he's not trained for the situation. He's not ready.
No.
And that's kind of what makes you root for him a bit more. It's because he's really fighting against the odds. Because not only is he escaping from Javier Bardem, but also from like an entire gang of criminals who are extremely ready to kill and have done it many times before. And he's just a normal, like, let's say, not that we live the same life as him, or that we come from that background, or from Texas, or that we're cowboys in that sense, but he's not used to that world at all, and you can really see that he's not ready for that world. What would you do in that situation? Like, if you had to go on the run, firstly, I think I would leave the country, as I was saying. Like, you have to.
Yeah, but there is a question to make before, which is to ask before, which is the question that Clem asked me, which is just at the beginning. Would you have taken that luggage?
The money, yeah, true.
The money. And I said, well, yeah, actually, I think that's yeah. And then actually rethinking about it.
Once you've seen the film, you're not sure you would want to take it.
Maybe a little block of money, yes, because I don't think that would change too much. But to be honest, I don't know at this point. Maybe it's too risky too.
But I mean, I don't know, because of course, when you're in that situation, it's very tempting because it's such a life-changing amount of money. But he also knew, because of the context in which he found the money, that it could be a risky.
Of course he knew. In fact, the first thing he did was going back home and saying, "Baby, we are packing. We're going away. Call your mom and tell her we're going somewhere. I don't know." I was like, "Okay, yes, sure." So he's very much aware. He's escaping.
Exactly.
And he's not doing the most important thing to do. That we were saying, please, if you realize that you've been chased, check maybe if there is something that you should be, you should take care of. And you know what we mean, I guess.
Another thing I was thinking about, which I think is interesting, is the character of Tommy Lee Jones, and actually about the title of the film. And because I think sometimes the title of the film initially can seem ambiguous, but then when you think about the themes that are important towards the end of the film, that you almost, people maybe tend to forget a bit because it's not the thriller part of the film, but towards the end of the film there's a whole arc about Tommy Lee Jones's character who goes to one of his friends' house, and he talks about retiring, if you remember.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people who forgot about the last part.
So there's a whole sequence. I mean, throughout the film, he's talking about retirement, right? And then in the last scene, he has retired, and he's also talking about his relationship with his father, who died when he was younger than himself. And I was thinking that it's interesting because Tommy Lee Jones, this idea of the good sheriff who's somehow like helpful towards citizens and an upstanding character, and who's unambiguously good, not a shade of grey, right? And it's interesting because it's almost like that idea that comes from the original Western almost dies out in this film. He knows that his type of character, it's almost like he's aware that he's a fictional character who can't exist anymore, and that's why the film is called No Country for Old Men. Or at least that was my interpretation. Because he's seen a world that's too twisted. Because, for example, the main. I mean, Josh Brolin isn't a hero by any means necessary. He does some bad things, and he doesn't behave in a heroic way.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's almost like the world of heroes and villains, or of cowboys, of the westerns,
Yeah,
let's
of
say,
course.
which Tommy Lee Jones maybe belongs to.
Yes, of course.
He's seeing it
He's the
disappear,
old tradition.
and
values
those scenes at the end where he talks
mentality.
about retiring, and he talks, "I'm too old for this." That's, I think,
sure.
it's the country that
That's
he
the
knows is
core.
gone is
Yeah.
actually an important. That's why the title of the film.
Yes,
comes
I
from,
agree.
think.
I agree. In fact, I also thought just after, a bit after, I thought maybe I didn't understand very much at least from the title, I expected something very different. Because also I guess there is an Italian film that is called similarly, and is this small town that starts to disappear as old people are disappearing.
Interesting.
Yeah, and somehow I don't know, I connected it to that, so I thought something like, okay, you're questioning how the new generations are shaping the new world, and some older people don't belong anymore or don't fit this scheme anymore. And then after watching this, I thought, who is supposed to be the old person? Or who are the old people? Where are the old people? I thought they're quite young, everybody, somehow. Not young, but they are, I don't know, middle age.
Yeah.
Early middle age. And so I was interrogating myself. And then actually, yes, this interpretation is what I think it's matching the most. What I wanted to say is that in the end it's a good interpretation, because I think that somehow the new world is adding more nuances. There is not, as you were saying, the bad and the good anymore. But the question is also, has it ever been there, or you just didn't want to see? It's not maybe the question of the film, but I think it's a question that we have to ask ourselves at this point. Because even the thing, the cartel is the bad, blah, blah, blah. And the sheriff is the good. But I don't know, they're still maybe killing a lot of people. They're still, for what reason? What is the goal? Why are we creating this good and bad? And where is it us leading to? Because the good sheriff is reinforcing the fact that there is someone bad. And if someone bad keeps believing in this stereotype, then I'm sorry, but that will self-fulfilling prophecy. Thank you. That's what I wanted.
It reminds me of an interesting film, I think, from 1999 called Lone Star, with Chris Christopherson, which is also a film that deals with maybe the myth of the sheriff, and in Texas also, because Texas is the Lone Star State, as it's called. The title of the film derives, and it's also set on the border to Mexico. And I think those two films share that commonality, because they're both can appear to be westerns at first glance, but actually are almost like distancing themselves from the myth of the western, because neither of them operate as western cinematically. And although Lone Star is more of because it also deals with the racism in the police and things like that, it's more explicitly destroying that myth, maybe. But also, I think No Country for Old Men, in terms of its construction and genre, is almost like an anti-western, because it's, although it shares some features, it's constructed extremely differently.
Yeah, as also they says in the future, it is a genre, and then they play with the genre, so they go out of the genre. You can see the main elements of the genre of the Western film is really very much there. I recognized it, and then I'm not so used to see them. And then at the same time, also, as you were mentioning before, it's also a thriller, because there are many tense elements. So some of the actors, to be honest, were mentioning is also a bit a humor-based film. I don't see the humor, I really don't. But let's give credit to what they think.
I think the Coens are famously quite comedic directors as well, so it's interesting. No, I would agree. I mean, there's some moments, maybe, but for sure not that many.
No.
I think also a lot of Hitchcockian, to go back to Hitchcock, because maybe he's the reference point in making thrillers, some scenes really lend a lot to that type of Hitchcockian tension. Maybe one of the most notable examples is when Josh Brolin is looking under the door, waiting for someone to arrive outside his hotel room, and has to kind of understand whether someone is going to stop, the footsteps going to stop outside his room. It's extremely tense and horrible scene.
And even there, so based on the sound.
Straight out of Hitchcock's playbook of tension.
Which works.
Yeah.
Let's learn from the masters. That's what we have to say.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, it's true, absolutely. And so the tension, as we said, it's great. And in fact, it's not super a fast pace. It doesn't have a super fast pace.
No.
But since the tension is so there, in the end, you can really keep up very easily. It's you're with them. Even if, as we also mentioned before, maybe with the thing of first the main character, so Josh Brolin being not 100% relatable because he's very Texans based, and also he's not the good guy. No. Which, the spectator often thinks, okay, I am the good person. I can relate to the good.
But I don't think, it's not needed, I think.
No, not only is not needed, but we don't relate too much with him 100%. And we sometimes, though, relate to Javier Bardem, I think, because we follow, how we follow his story. Yeah. And while Josh Brolin is a bit of a generic person, Javier Bardem is extremely characterized. He has many details, many deep elements. I mean, not deep, but he has very recognizable elements that make you somehow be with him. Even sympathize with him sometimes. Maybe also because of what you said. Like
it's strange,
quite happy that you're not going to be killed.
Well, also at the end, that scene where he gets into an accident and then asks the children for help. You don't really want him to get caught. And then that's actually the thing that it reminds me of Psycho, which I always say, like, the brilliance of Psycho is that for the first hour, you're hoping that that you're hoping that Janet Crane's character won't die, and you're really hoping that she'll survive. And then when it kind of switches and the detective comes to speak to Norman Bates at the motel, Hitchcock manages to make you hope he doesn't get caught, right? You're hoping, you're rooting for him. You want the detective to leave him alone and to stop asking him questions. And that's
because it's discomfort you're sympathizing.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like, no, you've spent time with him and you can see that he's uncomfortable. And that's like, it's just great writing, I guess, and great filmmaking. And that switch is what they manage in No Country for Old Men. Because most of the film, you're really rooting for Josh Brolin, and you're like, oh God, get away from Javier Bardem. And then there's like a turning point where suddenly you kind of want Javier Bardem to get out of there, and to not, at least to not like get him be interact with anyone else, because he'll only bring destruction and havoc.
I mean, you don't sympathize, I think, at the same level that you do with Norman Bates, because Bates with Norman Bates, but because also I think in the context of Psycho, Norman Bates is quite he's like a bit, you can understand that he has some issues, so you're like, okay, he's a
at that point you don't know also.
No, you don't know, but
he's
but you can understand that something is not quite right.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, maybe he should be taken care of. Wait till you don't really think with Javier Bardem, because you really think, wow, he really doesn't look at the face of anyone. He really doesn't care. He's so impassible to anything. What kind of trauma did he have? Is he human? Maybe he's not.
Yeah, he's very good.
Certainly. And that foreign accent also.
It was the first Spanish act to win an Oscar. Interestingly, this film was the third lowest grossing film to ever win Best Picture, which I was saying before. But I think it's interesting. And I think as Oscar winners go, Best Picture Oscar winners, it's definitely quite a strong one. And I'm glad it got its recognition, because it's an excellent thriller and enjoyable. Came out the same year as There Will Be Blood by Paul Thomas Anderson, which maybe some people would have preferred that one. I don't really remember enough about There Will Be Blood. No, I mean, I think I think I personally probably have a preference to No Country for Old Men, but I don't know which I would consider to be a better film.
Which style do you like the most?
between the Coens and Paul Thomas Anderson.
See, but specifically in these two films, for what you remember?
I think There Will Be Blood is maybe more ambitious, but I think No Country for Old Men is more effective, certainly more concise. I don't know. Let us know which one you prefer.
See.
So what did you think, as someone who hasn't seen much of the Coens?
Wait, before we go into this, there is something else, like an important element that maybe will allow me also to explain better what I think, which is, again, like, care for details. I love these things. And Carson Wells, played by Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson is actually, his father is the one who inspired also a scene, the initial scene. Or in any case, he inspired part of this story because his dad killed a judge, and that's how also the story begins and everything. So the fact that they chose his son to play a character in this film, for me, it's to be honest a great choice, and also great from Woody to accept this because.
He's a very good actor. Also, I mean, we saw him in True Detective recently because we watched that, which is also set in the Deep South
without subtitles. Not recommended.
But no, he's very good. As is Matthew McConaughey in True Detective, actually.
And maybe, spoiler alert very much, the fact also that in the end Javier Bardem is not managing to kill Josh Brolin, that's maybe one of the craziest part of the whole thing. Like, really, as we said before, you build attention towards something, you know that if he's going to be killed by Javier Bardem, and that's not what it happens, and that's so also realistic.
No, I agree.
Because in this case, you can be chased by anyone, and you don't. I mean, it's possible that your ideal murderer won't take you, and that's so frustrating for Javier Bardem so much that he has to kill his wife in the end, to the wife of Josh Brolin.
Exactly. Well,
yes.
He
gives her the chance. Yeah, and she says, "I'm sorry, but I don't play this little game.
Yeah.
I don't decide for my own death. You're deciding. I'm letting you know that you're deciding for my own death."
Exactly.
And that's where I think also her power lays, her little marginal power.
So, as someone who has only seen 2 Coen films, what did you think about the style, let's say, or how would you react? Especially because I imagine you've probably heard it's quite a famous film, especially No Country for Old Men. I mean, it has a reputation. So how did it compare to your expectations or to what you could perceive about it before?
But as I said, like, I imagined a different storytelling and a different themes. I didn't imagine it so philosophically exploring, if we could say that. As in, I expected something with a clearer message, or maybe more told in a more basic and accessible way. I don't think it's not accessible, but for sure you have to dedicate some time and some thinking about it, on it. I don't know. Which is something that I actually like. And I'm liking more and more, the more I'm watching films of a certain type, the more I'm appreciating this element. I also did it before, to be honest, but in a different way. Maybe before I could appreciate it more for Mulholland Drive, which is more like absurd. So you want to think, okay, what happened, blah, blah. In these cases, you know what happened. So the discussion goes beyond, which I think is very interesting and I like. And what I maybe missed, and now we gained today while watching the features, is listening maybe directly the director speak, and also maybe the crew in general, because that gives me more of a connection with them, and I empathize with them more. I understand more how they operate, and the fact, for example, also that they are very connected and they work and they get along very well. That's something that makes me like them more and makes me, I don't know, maybe watch their films more serenely.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something that I can appreciate. So as a first watch, I liked it. I'm curious to see what I will think the next time I will watch it. having some basis that I think I will remember a few things, even if again a few things I already have removed from my memory, so it's not my genre. So that's why some things are very easy to forget for me. But it left me something nonetheless. So yeah. How was for you the second?
No,
second?
I enjoyed it very much. Yeah, it was the second time watching it. Yeah, it was interesting to see because I think because it was the first Coen film I watched, but then I watched a few others, all of which quite different. I mean, Fargo is probably the most similar film to it because it's got that kind of thriller vibe, although Fargo is lighter, much lighter in a sense. And then Big Lebowski is extremely different. It's a much more comic film and offbeat. It's very different tonally. Also very good, very interesting, strange somehow. But and you can almost, because there's some details that are similar, but you wouldn't necessarily associate them. But No Country for Old Men, I really enjoyed. And also, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou is more similar to Big Lebowski, maybe, because it's not a super serious film somehow. I mean, it's quite strange and offbeat. But no, yeah, it's very good.
See, but also, because I think also, as they were saying in the features, in the interviews and everything, they are two different minds in one body, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is that they are two different people with different backgrounds. If I'm not wrong, one studied like philosophy or something and the other one cinema. So it's so interesting to see these two worlds combined because one has the technical knowledge to build what they both have the idea in common of, and that maybe the other one is able to explore on a more theoretical, grounded field. And I think these two elements combined create a very powerful combination that is delivering very well made and carefully taken care of and carefully built like in all its parts films, which I think is one of the greatest power.
Yeah.
If you think about it.
No, I agree.
And it reminded me a bit also of Memories of a Murder. In its sometimes also the setting, but also in the fact that it's very differently made, but it is not taking you in their own world. It's like it's a bit. There is always that element of distance in my head, in my mind, which is very typical, I think, of a detective approach. You're not involved directly 100% in the case, but you are a bit distant because maybe also you don't connect or click or love all the characters or all the people. So I don't know, I had this feeling. Maybe.
So how would you rank this film? Because it's on the top 250, how would you rank it yourself?
Allora, this is the number 146. My personal would be lower. I think it deserves to be in the top 250. If it's their only film in the top 250, to be honest, then you can. I think it should be, because Big Lebowski is like a 4.1. I checked before, and the other ones, I don't think they will reach.
Maybe Burn After Reading, but I don't know.
One thing also that I liked a lot, is true, is that Javier Bardem is not made invincible.
Yeah.
And that's something that I loved, because humans are not invincible. And that's to be...
No.
No, it's the only one. So yeah, definitely deserves that. We needed to have at least one of theirs in the top. And it's okay for me if it's in the top 150.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I could also have it in my personal life as 150th-ish, but the one of my heart, it would be lower.
Maybe it's not your style of film.
No, exactly. No, I prefer like a Céline Sciamma film. So yeah, that's
Yes.
in that sense, yeah.
But it's
I like the delicacy, which
yes.
this film is not really. I don't know. I like things that are extremely human in a very personal way. And somehow, I don't know how to describe it, in a way of skin to skin. Which this is very much not. It's super human, but on a level that I don't love to explore too much, or it doesn't intrigue me as much.
Yes.
And does it work for you in this position?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's hard. It's always hard to say. But no, rewatching it was confirmation of how well made it is, because technically it's also excellent, brilliantly shot, and it's extremely effective in affecting the audience, which is very important. And
would you put it as the first then of their films? Huh?
Yeah,
I
think I would. Yeah, for that one at least. But yeah, you can't ask for much more from a thriller, because it also goes above and beyond the genre of thriller and poses other questions.
Which is, I think, the most interesting thing. And the thing that maybe it's the one that is making people spend the most of their time interrogating about this film.
Well, I think that's what people... I mean, that's what can elevate a film beyond... I'm trying to think of another good example now, and it's quite... But I suppose... I was thinking of the sci-fi genre, and I was thinking, I don't know, I'm sure there's lots of examples, but I suppose what people would really love about something like Blade Runner, for example, is it also poses existential questions, apart from creating a purely sci-fi future, is that it also has a philosophical approach, and I think that's...
Yeah, somehow, let's say that the cinema or that film or the story is the medium to convey what you want to say.
Also, actually, I mean, that's more in the horror genre, but absolutely. But that's maybe a bit more explicit. Thank you for watching. Have you seen No Country for Old Men? If you have, let us know. If you haven't...
No, but really... no, especially tell us, would you have taken the luggage with the money?
Yes, that's super important. And we will see you in 2 weeks with another film. We don't know what it is yet. Please like, subscribe.
Ciao.
So bye.